do you think of when you hear the word marketing? Do you think of cool ads that have all these crazy pictures? Do you think of great emails that are composed just the right way that get people to take action? Do you think of a website that looks awesome and generates leads? I bet you think of all of those, but I bet you also don't think of some of the back-end execution and operation stuff that has to happen, the dirty side of marketing, the things that you need to have, or else all that awesome creative doesn't really work. Well, Nathan Yeung came in. He's with Find Your Audience, and Nathan did a great job of explaining all the things you need to have happen so you don't miss out on the benefits of all that creative stuff that you did. Check it out. I think you're going to like this.
Welcome to Scale Your SaaS, the podcast that gives you proven techniques and formulas for boosting your revenue and achieving your dream exit. Brought to you by a guy who's done just that multiple times. Here's your host, Matt Wolach.
Yes, welcome to Scale Your SaaS. Very glad you're here. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Matt, and our goal is to do exactly that, to help you scale your SaaS so you can understand the right ways to generate leads, close those leads, have an amazing team do it for you, and get to where you got to get. And I'm super pumped today. We're joined by Nathan Yeung. Nathan, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Matt. Thanks for having me on today.
Awesome. You're welcome. I'm really excited for our conversation. Let me make sure everybody knows who you are, Nathan. So Nathan is the Vice President and CMO at Find Your Audience. He has helped numerous companies build their marketing teams from scratch, delivering successful go-to-market deployments and launching new products into the market. He leads teams of marketing managers, graphic designers, media buyers, coordinators, freelancers, all of the above. It sounds like he's a rock star, and he does this to develop and implement marketing strategies for organizations. So when it comes to marketing and generating interest and demand, Nathan knows his stuff. I'm really happy you're here. Thanks for coming, Nathan.
I'm excited for the conversation, and especially, we're going to be talking about SaaS today, and we deal with a lot of SaaS.
That's awesome. Yeah, SaaS is such a great industry. Before we get into that, just tell me, what have you been up to lately and what's coming up for you?
You know what's been lately? Content creation has been a huge thing as of recently. I've literally just been talking to some of our organizations about content creation, and I think it's a buzzy word. It's a super buzzy word, and I feel like our organization really excels at what we call as marketing operations, which is really the unsexy part of actually getting the marketing done. And we're really trying to help companies really understand how much it takes to create content. I think a lot of people think it's far easier than they kind of think. It's quite difficult. There's a lot of nuances. There's a lot of challenges, and also a lot of emailing recently. So a lot of email infrastructure stuff. So really helping clients understand that on a technical perspective.
I love that. That's something I literally was just talking with a client about right before this, is making sure that their emails are set up correctly for when they're doing cold. There's a lot of bad things you can do tech-wise if you're doing cold emails. But you said something in there I think is really important that a lot of people don't quite understand, is that split between the operations side of marketing and the creative side. And sometimes when people think marketing, like, oh yeah, I just come up with like this really pretty picture and we go put it in an ad and it's great, right? But you're right. There's an operations component that's really important. Can you kind of explain first, for some people who don't know, what are the two components, and really how do you make sure that you're allocating enough effort to both?
Sure. And it really depends on the impact and the spends, right? Or the type of campaigns. But the creative part of it is really just making sure that, one, your messaging is very clear. Your messaging's on point in the sense of it's really hitting what your ideal customer profile wants in terms of pain points, making sure you're communicating well. And then, of course, taking that messaging and communicating that well inside of an asset. So whether that asset is audio, whether that asset is video, whether that asset is just an image, whether that asset is also just like your sales enablement tools, translating that messaging and making it that into one cohesive package is really the creative exercise. Now, what ends up happening on the back end of that is there's the operational exercise. The operational exercise could be as simple as, hey, so you got this brand new amazing sales enablement tool. How are you distributing that amongst your sales members? How are you making sure that everyone within the organization is fully aware that you have brand new case studies that you just did and you spent $10,000 doing videos with your clients on? There's often this huge disconnect of like sales enablement production and also the velocity to the salespeople actually even knowing that they exist. That's like a very nuanced operational thing. If we really want to talk about the operations in a different format, I'll give two great examples on a technology perspective. I know that we're listening, a lot of the listeners are SaaS people. So you're going to be like, hey, Nate, how do I deal with international translation? Well, I'm going to tell you, there's no shortcut. When it comes to international translation, and if you have an active demand gen funnel and you're actively in different markets, I'm going to tell you your marketing team's going to hate you. Why? Because auto translate does not work. Okay, so whoever thinks auto translate works, fine. It maybe works for the one market that like is 10th on your priority scale and you just don't care. Sure, that's going to do fine. But it's not going to work for any country that you're actively wanting to go into market and actually penetrate. So what does marketing have to do? Hey, Nate, we got a sales enablement tool. Great. Let's translate this in 10 different languages. Oh, Nate, I need a landing page. Okay, we got to get that in 6 different languages. Now, the time for us to produce all those things, that's the operations part, right? And then making sure that that's consistent, because the last thing you want is your head of Turkey going, hey, I heard from the last meeting that we've got this great new sales enablement tool. Why don't I have anything for me to use in my geo, right? And that's like a huge problem. And that really annoys salespeople. And you know how valuable those people are, right? So operations of marketing, we have to actually stay on top of that. We have to build the SOPs, the standard operating procedures to ensure the velocity of that content being distributed fairly amongst the team members. The other part is just like your CRM system, right? Ensuring that your CRM system even has proper workflows. Yes, that does kind of bridge on the idea of sales, but often, I like to kind of, stepping on Matt, your toes because you're a sales expert. But, I always envision salespeople are really good at 2 different things. 1, having technical solution type sales conversations. 3, building an amazing relationship with someone. And everything else should really be marketing. So I don't want my sales guy going into HubSpot, going into Salesforce, building workflows, building dashboards. I kind of just, maybe either pay like a Salesforce consultant or HubSpot consultant do that, or have marketing do that, because I want them focused on what they do best, which is just selling. And so often on an operational standpoint, marketing really takes care of that. Marketing takes care of the nurturing. Marketing sometimes even takes care of the funnel and the rules of the funnel, because when they go stale, we actually need to pull that data and put them into a nurturing funnel. So that's all technical operations work. That's not creative work. That's just technical operations work. So that's really like the classification of operations. Creative is honestly where every single person who wants to go into marketing wants to be, because it's sexy and it's fun. And you get to see it really quickly, right? But there's really this unfortunate dark side, which is like incredibly critical to the success of whatever you're doing. And it's kind of sits behind the scenes. So we do a lot of that. We do a ton of operational work.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's completely vital to actually getting results and making things happen. And I agree with you. If you're going to pay a lot of money for these salespeople and train them really well to sell, you don't want them doing anything else. Like it's frustrating when they have to go into the CRM and try and fix this workflow and update this or add this. Like, stop that. Like, get somebody else to do that so that we can have salespeople selling. And I love that. I think you feel the same way as I do, but sales and marketing, I think, have gotten too siloed in many organizations, and they're kind of on their own doing different things. And we really need to create this meshing of sales and marketing. And my friend Dan Tyre, he's one of the leaders at HubSpot. He calls it schmarketing. So it's all kind of together, but there's kind of these blending of roles of sales and marketing into a CRO, a conversion rate optimization role. Yeah. How do you see this happening now in the best way, and how do you see this impacting businesses going forward?
It's getting weird, because I think so much of marketing is bleeding into sales, especially on the technology stack perspective, right? The sales stack and the MAR stack, like, if you really look at what each of those stacks do, they're really getting blended. Like they used to be kind of separate, but they're very much not separated at all anymore. So for me, I generally actually look at marketing and sales becoming a rev function, like literally just a revenue operations function. And the reason I say that is because I completely agree with you, Matt. Like, we're far too siloed. I kind of always say, a lot of people like to pigeonhole marketing into like these MQL and random KPIs because they feel like that's best in class to use right now. But that's just because they're listening to a whole bunch of people and they're not really thinking about the nuances. The nuance is marketing is a function that is meant to amplify revenue or sales. It does not matter what our function does, so long as that is the outcome. So if my function is I'm creating better workflows, guess what? I'm not doing MQLs. If my job is to create better sales enablement, guess what? I'm not creating MQLs. If I am doubling or tripling the productivity of your sales team, that is definitely not on my KPI structure. So this whole idea of like marketing being pigeonholed behind demand generation, performance marketing, inbound leads, content, whatever, gated content downloads, like whatever term you want to quantify, it's just kind of short-sighted. And the reason it's short-sighted is because you always end up forgetting the game plan is you need to have quality leads and quality conversions. If I wanted just to get MQLs, then I call that amateur hour kind of KPIs. Why? Because I could get 1,000 MQLs and I could be wasting my salespeople with a bunch of unqualified people. So that's not great for anyone, right? That's not great for it's not great for the salespeople. It's not great for the organization, but you know who it's great for? Me, because you gave me stupid KPIs to follow. So I'm incentivized to get you 1,000, MQLs. Let me go do a newsletter. Let me go do a webinar, right? So I find that, if people are actually really smart about approaching marketing and sales, they are going to come to the same conclusion. It's very much a revenue role. It's a revenue function. And our responsibilities are uniquely different, but they are all for the same outcome. And so this idea that sales and marketing have to be these separate entities, I think is very much going away. And technology is really forcing that matter faster.
I think that's really insightful. I totally agree. And I've been in those rooms where sales says, you pointed sales, how come you're not closing anything? Well, the leads we're getting are terrible. We're getting you lots of leads, marketing says. And you have this back and forth and it gets nasty. And I agree. I think that the smarter people who are being intentional about this are really focusing on how can we blend these roles, these divisions, these departments, these people, and come up with the same goals, right? And I think that that's where it has to be is what are the goals of where we're trying to get as an organization? And I love it. Revenue. We need revenue. And we need to get those conversions to get revenue. So let's make it happen as a team.
Yeah. And that's kind of why I go to a lot of companies and I sometimes go, sometimes my first job, my first outcome, when we're hired by companies, I might actually end up telling them, I was like, look, your demand generation sucks. Your content sucks. You don't have anyone to produce content, so that's not happening anytime soon. So what I'm hearing is that you have an amazing sales team and they're running your conferences, meaning they're also the ones booking your conferences. They're ad hocly building out their sales decks. So every single sales member doesn't have the same deck because they're all using their own. Oh. So how about this? Why don't for the first 6 months of my engagement, my focus is actually double or tripling the productivity of your sales team as a marketing function. So it's less about brand, it's less about all these things, but marketing is really going to come in there and support the sales team in everything that they're not technically sufficient to do. You want a new deck? That's my job. You want a new you want a new enrichment list based on your TAM? That's my job. You want a new cadence? Well, we'll help you with the cadence. You can polish the cadence, but don't write the cadence from the start, right? So this idea that we have to produce MQLs, I really think is incredibly frustrating, and I think people need to be more mindful. Again, it's all about the revenue, so just focus on that, and that could mean I'm just helping salespeople.
I love that, and as a CEO, that's music to my ears. So when would a SaaS company say, okay, we need to have someone help us with this? When is the best time for that?
So that's a great question. And I think every podcast I've ever been, they go like, how do you build like a marketing team? So here's generally what I'll say. Your first and second marketing hire kind of sucks. Why? Because generally speaking, the average marketer is likely going to be wide in skill sets and shallow in their technical capabilities, or they're going to be incredibly not wide, but narrow and incredibly technical only in one skill set. So
and I would say, not to interrupt you, I feel like most of the time, early stage companies, when they make their first marketing hire, look for that person who's wide. They're like, hey, can you do this thing? Can you do that? Can you do that? Can you do that? And they're not really good at any of them, but they have done or think they can do all of those different things. And that gets tough.
Yeah, and it's an overestimation of what people can do, and it's also just like a general underappreciation of like how complicated marketing is, because that's like our problem, right? Marketing people make marketing look easy. That's our whole shtick, right? Like we just make things simple. And so we inherently have people who undermine marketing because they think it's actually easy because it's the outcome of other great marketers making it sound easy. And so, generally speaking, you're probably better off hiring someone who's narrow. And what narrow are we looking for? Then I'm going to say someone who's very good at product marketing. And to me, the way I define product marketing is very much being accountable and responsible in ensuring that your product or service actually fits a very large white space that's worth your time, actually has features or benefits that really hit pain points, and ensuring a constant feedback loop from the sales team back to either the product team or the service team or the executive team to ensure that your services and products are being involved with the market. So their entire role is really just focused on making sure you have fit. So that's what I think is great. Why? Because everything that they do directly translates into sales enablement tools. And that's something that they can do. Now, they're not probably going to be an amazing graphic designer, but you're going to have all the great content so your salespeople don't have to write this out. And ultimately, this product person can do it. Now, if you don't want to hire just a product person, my honest suggestion is don't bother trying to find an individual until you can afford about 3 to 4 marketing people. You're probably likely better off with an agency. And the reason I say that is just because an agency is going to have the wide kind of breadth of skills, but they will have the technical depth in all those skills because they have scale, right? So for example, I have 25, 26 employees. I have a full-time developer or multiple full-time developers. I have a professional media buyer who specializes in particular platforms. So when you go on these tangents or these campaigns, some companies like to call it, you will get proper execution instead of your poor marketing manager who claims to know SEO, media buying, content writing, graphic design, who's probably going to do honestly a piss poor job. So you really don't benefit from trying to find that person to do it all. You end up just kind of shooting yourself in the foot because you need to execute on what limited tactics you can execute on, and you need to execute on them well. So you're not going to find that on your first employee, and you're really not going to find that on your second, because generally your second is either going to be a coordinator or maybe like a content writer of some sort. So you're really just going to be stuck with these kind of mediocre executors. So you very much are better off hiring an agency to do it. And then when you get big enough and you can actually hire 4 people, then you scrap the agency and you build a team.
It makes a ton of sense. So that's one big mistake that SaaS leaders are making. What would you say other mistakes that they're making with regards to marketing?
Spreading yourself thin. I think that's like number one, right? Every SaaS leader wants to jump on every shiny object, and this is like the one thing I've heard on multiple calls. People are always going, "What's working in your industry?" Now, I do think there's a propensity for some categories or industries to have tactics that work better. So I'll give you a great example: cybersecurity sales. Cybersecurity sales notoriously difficult. Notoriously difficult. Why? Because like chief security officers, chief technology officers are like incredibly skeptical of anything cybersecurity. And of course, if you think about the manner of that business, it is meant to be skeptical. Like you have to be hyper skeptical. So the chances of you selling something through an email, which is predominantly a form of phishing for a lot of people, especially in this industry, they just don't like it. So in the cybersecurity industry, the tactic that generally works are associations and conferences. Why? Because you actually need to be in person. So if you're a cybersecurity company and you're predominantly selling in cybersecurity, guess what? Your main function should be a corporate and events function. Why? Because generally that's what this market needs and that ICP wants. Now, if you're in other industries, right, other tactics work a little bit easier, like email will work or phone will work, but it always comes down to what can you actually do well, which is what I always end up saying, right? So you can try to force the issue in the sense of like, I want to do TikTok because TikTok's the coolest thing. But if you don't have someone who is, proficient in creating content, who actually has a role and who can do it sustainably, then you're just going to have piss poor execution. So it doesn't matter that you're doing TikTok, you're just doing a bad job. So I always tell people, Matt, it's always about sustainability and practicality. Whatever tactic it is, you just have to look in your organization and really go, what can I do sustainably and practically? What can I do for a long period of time without worrying about it? And what can I do it well? And if you can't do it, don't bother. Not until you have scale, not until you have budget. Why? Because you don't have budget. So stop thinking you do. You don't have time. You don't have time budget. You don't have money budget. You don't have human capital budget. So whoever is doing whatever your marketing tactic is, they got to focus on at least only one or two things max. And it has to fit under that sustainable and practical principle.
I love it. Super, super good advice. Something that people definitely need to listen to. And Nathan, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all your knowledge. Where can people learn more about what you're doing, and of course of what you guys are doing at Find Your Audience?
Yeah, awesome. So I have like an Instagram reel channel. You can find me at fya.marketingbytes, and that's with a Y. You can also find me, of course, on LinkedIn, Nathan Yeung, spelled Yeung, or of course my website, www.findyouraudience.online.
Okay, cool. And we'll make sure we put that all into the show notes, so everybody listening, you'll be able to see it there. And YouTube, if you're on YouTube, you'll see it down below in the description. Nathan, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing all this with us.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate the time.
Absolutely. And everybody out there, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate you being here. Make sure you're subscribed to the show. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any other amazing leaders like Nathan giving you all their best wisdom. Hit that up, and then we will see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Scale Your SaaS. For more help on finding great leads and closing more deals, go to mattwolach.com.